Sweet divine whisperings, sweet divine whisperings, sweet divine whisperings, rising up through my soul. I got these sweet divine memories. Sweet divine remembrance, sweet divine remembrance, telling me truths I used to know. You see, I've known the words to my own song, and I've known this music all along. It's just that I've forgotten how to sing. I am this rhythm, I made this rhyme. Still I lose my groove from time to time. So it helps me to remember this world's most beautiful thing. It's the sweet divine awakening. Yes, the sweet divine awakening. It's the sweet divine awakening that'll be bringing me back home. You see, we know the words to our own song, and we've known this music all along. It's just that we've forgotten how to sing. We made this rhythm, we are this rhyme. Still we lose the groove from time to time. So it helps us to remember this world's most beautiful thing. It's the sweet divine awakening. It's the sweet divine awakening. A sweet divine awakening, bringing us all back home. Yes, the sweet divine awakening, it'll be bringing us all back home.
Good morning. Good morning, Sister Belinda, Sister Fatima.
Good morning, Sister Usha.
Good morning. Good morning,
Sister
all.
Belinda.
Good morning, Sister Fatima.
Morning.
So today we are taking on the topic of the power of remembrance. And remembrance in meditation is really about us returning to that point where we are in our original stage. So it's good for us to see how having remembrance is going to help us on this journey to return back to our powerful stage of being a king, a sovereign. So sisters, over to you.
The word is quite an interesting word, isn't it? Remembering or remembrance. It's got kind of two meanings in a way. One is you remember something that you've forgotten. And I've always found this very comforting on the spiritual journey, that I'm actually not trying to learn something new, but I'm just remembering something that I've forgotten. I'm remembering myself. I've definitely forgotten myself as a spiritual being. But I'm also remembering that I have a home, actually. And the home is not this physical dimension, because the soul is not physical. So the physical dimension is the home of that which is physical. And so I'm remembering. It's a little bit like waking up. And then the other meaning of remember is that I mustn't forget something. Someone will say, please remember to do something. And meaning, don't forget. And I think this is one of our challenges, because we live in such a physical world, and our senses, we've discussed in this series about how our senses pull us constantly into physical experiences, which in a way can contradict my spiritual identity. But when we get these two things clear, that I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience in the physical world, and I mustn't forget who I am and where I come from, and that I am going to go back there. That is absolutely for sure. And then also, I've forgotten my parent. And we may believe in God, but to really have that true experience that I have a very loving parent, I am not an orphan. And I don't have to lead my life as if I'm an orphan, meaning I have no one who is ultimately responsible for me. That divine parent is 100% responsible for me, but his relationship is with the soul and not the body. Thank you.
I'm going to look at the word yoga. We have come to understand the meaning of the word yoga as connecting or connection. And it has become a very popular word today, because there are many kinds of yoga. But in particular, this yoga that we are practicing, which is called Raja Yoga, is spiritual. And as Sister Belinda was saying, we have forgotten And now we are remembering. We have remembered our identity of who we are, and we also know who we belong to. And so by remembering, we are connecting to the one that you had forgotten, but now you have remembered. And so this remembrance requires one to go inside and experience silence, but not the silence of just keeping quiet and not talking while the mind is running all over the place. But it is the silence of even quieting the mind so that you are completely focused in connecting your mind to God. And it
Sister Fatima, I think you've just muted yourself. Sister Fatima, you've muted yourself. Okay.
We did not know how deep silence is because we've always experienced silence on a physical level. But when you experience silence on a spiritual level, it's an entirely new world that opens up just amazing, amazing insights, because you have the ability to focus on one, just one thing at a time, and go very deeply into it and be held in that space. And this is what, for me, makes remembrance powerful. This is the experience that I get when I go into that silence and I feel connected to the Supreme, or I feel connected to my inner self, my innate qualities. And then I remember who I am, what I have, that these qualities are mine. They are like built into me. They can never be taken away. And I find that experience extremely uplifting.
So since you were talking about the yoga, and we look at yoga as a connecting, the word remembrance, looking it up in a dictionary, it literally means to recall with love. So in sort of keeping with what Sister Belinda was saying, is that when you recall, it means that it's already there. It's just something maybe you filed away, so you're bringing it forward. But the bringing it forward, even with this powerful experience of being close. So love is, not that you're remembering something in the past that is distant. And so it's just like memory. And I think this is where sometimes people get a little bit mixed up with what, are we just going into old memories? But it's not to do with memory, because memory is just incidences and things that we remember, faces that we recall. But remembering to recall with love is to go back to that state of being connected to what I am, what I've always had. And so it is really remembrance is this union. It's actually the coming together. And so it's very important for us when we are on a spiritual journey, is that we're not trying to, in a sense, recreate ourselves, make ourselves new, because it would be like I was something and now I'm actually now dismantling that and I'm going to now create a new me. But it's really important to understand that who I am has always existed. And through life and its different experiences, there's been like a loading and a packing. And so we've acquired many, many different ideas and identities and opinions, which in a way has created a little bit of lack of clarity in terms of, we've become, in a sense, tainted by all those different things. And even our expression is not clear from all that which is acquired. And so the remembrance is really helping me to have that acceptance of my true self. And in this remembrance, I think what is important is that, can we have the honesty? And I think this is where silence is so beautiful, because we have to silence the noise of the senses, which has its own language. Because this silence is actually to go to something which is very rich and very pure. And sometimes when we don't have the self-respect and our senses are making a lot of noise, we cannot really have the power to accept how powerful we really are. And so this remembrance of firstly connecting to the truth within me, and also finding myself in relationship with that higher being, which is the Supreme. And all of that is, in a way, boosting my self-respect to the point for me to start valuing myself on a completely different level. And it can actually end up where we don't want to go to that space because we don't feel worthy. And that worthiness is coming because, to some extent, I'm still perceiving through these physical senses. And so that's why the silence is a very important thing, to be able to make sure that the noises of the senses, these physical senses, can actually be tapered down to quite an extent. So then I can actually connect with that inner power that actually exists within me. And it is essential. Without this kind of silence, the knowledge that we are learning will just be information. It won't be able to be something which I can grasp hold of and to say, okay, right now, this knowledge can actually become a power that can work in my life.
Yeah, just listening to you, Sister Osho, is, it's a nice thought to raise. If we have just forgotten who we really are, what was it like before I forgot? What was I like before I forgot? And there are so many stories and mythological stories about that time when we got separated. In some traditions, they call it the fall of man. And in other traditions, it's seen as a separation. And it's really so helpful to really think about what it was like before that happened. And that separation was just the forgetting. And here we are, sort of many centuries later, and we are remembering. We are remembering that which we forgot, and we are reclaiming that which we have also forgotten that we had. And that includes this pure self, this original self that is by nature loving, is by nature peaceful and joyful, not just as a concept, as a truth. And that time in the stories is also remembered as the time that we were separated from God. So separation from the self also means separation from God. And remembrance of the self also means being reunited with our Supreme Parent. But the two go together. First, I remember that I am a soul, and therefore I am like the Father. And I am worthy, as you said. This worthiness is a challenge for us. But the silence gives us that opportunity to really go within and to experience. And they say that experience is the greatest authority. People can tell you many things, but when you experience it for yourself, as Sister Fatima was sharing, nothing and no one can take that experience from you.
Maybe just to come in a bit, so when we've experienced the love of a parent, the care of a mother, or the wisdom of a teacher, if we've experienced it, it's like that power, even if the form of the parent or the teacher changes, but when they begin to express what is it that they are doing, we can recognize them even if we can't see them. And I think this is something quite wonderful, is that, you know, at this time, when we want to actually bring ourselves back to that point where the highest of who we are begins to be the expression of our lives, the guidance that we would require would be from someone who knows us very well and someone who we've experienced that has supported us. And so on this journey of remembrance, it's about rekindling those relationships. But I also just want to share something which I think, in a way, is very powerful when you think about somebody who's got amnesia and loses memory. The thing that people do is try and connect to the relationships that there was a strength in, where they had an experience of being cared and protected. So even though they can't remember the person, but when they can feel that energy of care and protection, that can actually revisit, bring them out of the forgetfulness and allow them remembrance of that relationship to bring out who they really are. So I feel in a way that we also got no direction, because if it's many, many centuries ago that we were in that pure state, there's no physical traces of what we were. And so it's our relationship with that Supreme Parent who knew us as we were in that really authentic stage, that when we use this time to create that union again, have yoga with that Supreme Being, it's going to help us to remember the self, because it's almost like in the presence of the Supreme, my whole being actually is there, because that being and I had a relationship. There was a connection there. We have experienced each other. And so just by reminding me of that relationship with the Supreme, it also will remind me of really my own higher self, because our aim really is to become self-realized. And so in realizing and reconnecting, to remember, and some of you might remember that story in Lion King, when Simba actually is knocked on the head and he's told, remember your father. And as soon as he remembers his father, he remembers who he is. He remembers that he is the future king. And so in a way, if we can also remember that we are the children of the divine, then our own divinity can become a reality to us. So we need a knock on our heads.
That's what I was wondering.
To shake us out of our amnesia.
And I think we do get knocks, those sort of wake-up calls, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Sometimes there are incidents, you're right, you know, when there's a death or there's a tragedy, we do actually try and reconnect with the higher power. Maybe this pandemic is also a gift in disguise, because it's we can't take support from the things we used to, so now we have to go much deeper.
But we already have that experience of being connected to the divine. And in a sense, we are not totally lost. You know, even in this pandemic, we know where to go. And we know where our Father is when you need that help spiritually most of the time. But for me also, remembrance, you know, you were mentioning, you know, the qualities and who we were before, when we had that connection with the divine, and then when we parted, we forgot. You begin to feel that it comes back. You feel you feel that love, that lightness, and it also gives you a picture of what the world would be like if we're all connecting in the same way to the divine. What kind of a world would we have? And the whole thing of remembrance for me is that the first thing that I feel is that I'm peaceful. I'm at peace. I feel that very, very strongly, that I'm peaceful. My peace has emerged. And I don't know how to describe this feeling, but I think it's something that one has to experience by themselves when they go into that state of remembrance, because it is such an uplifting experience on its own. And so, yeah.
It's a good time to remember.
Yes. Sister Usha, I'm going to have to run away. I've asked Sister Belinda to take over my meditation for this morning, because I have to go to a funeral right now.
All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, Sister Fatima.
I couldn't miss it for anything.
Yeah, and
thank you, everyone.
I know your peaceful vibrations will be very helpful there.
Thank you, Ben. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. So shall we have some meditation, Sister Usha? Okay, so this is a beautiful subject for our meditation this morning. And the first step, as always, which just takes a second, is to go inwards. The first connection, the first union is with the invisible self, the spirit. That conscious being, living being, that is completely separate from the physical. This being is of light and eternal. When one is eternal, there is nothing to worry about. The soul is free from harm, deeply secure and safe. And as this subtle being in this pure consciousness, we now reconnect, we have yoga with the divine, a being of light, just as the soul is a being of light, the same as the Supreme Father, Supreme Mother. I connect with this being through my mind, but also with the inner eye of wisdom, seeing with the inner eye, seeing this point of light, the ocean of peace, the ocean of love, the friend of the soul. The soul is loved by God without condition. We experience that pure spiritual love as it penetrates the soul. And all the barriers that we put up come down, and we allow that love to melt the fear, the worry, the anxiety, because the soul is truly secure. This sweet relationship, this bond of love, has always been there, seen or unseen, experienced or not. God's love is eternal, and the soul is worthy, worthy of love, of respect, full of all spiritual powers, all virtues. The one who is full can give to others without counting, without condition. The soul is like the Father, generous and open-hearted. And this brings light, the light that destroys darkness. This is the magic of yoga, the creation of spiritual light. Light always brings comfort when there is darkness. So as we go out into our day, let us remain aware. Let us remember that we are the bringers of light in our attitude, our vision, and our expression. Om Shanti.
So today, the subject of remembrance, the power of remembrance. To remember means to reconnect my awareness with deep feelings of love to who I am, where I come from, who I belong to. This remembrance allows me to have union, yoga with the truth. Removing false beliefs and acquired habits, I return to my authentic, natural nature of being a peaceful soul, a living being, a powerful living light. Om Shanti. So please have a beautiful day, and do remember that we do connect tomorrow, and Sunday and Monday will be our final day. Take care. Bye-bye.